right now.
Good morning and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Carol Battle and I manage our Worksite Wellness Program within the Office of State Human Resources. We're pleased that you can join us today. Please note that we offer caption at real-time services for today's event, and for captioning, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. For captioning in Spanish, you can click the link in the chat. For future events, if you or a deaf or hard of hearing colleague would like to use an accommodation, please email ncflex at nc.gov to make a request. To account for scheduling and booking constraints, please make your request at least 14 days in advance. Let's welcome our presenter, Katie Godin from Lifestyle Medical Centers. Katie will give us some insight into her top 10 healthy eating habits and how to approach these healthy eating habits best and to make them your own. I, in particular, am very interested to hear these. Katie's a registered dietitian who has been practicing for almost 17 years. She focuses on helping individuals improve their knowledge and their relationship with food and to meet their personal health goals. Lifestyle Medical Centers is an in-network counseling service for employees enrolled in the state health plan. Even under our new provider, Aetna, you will find that both virtual and in-person visits are covered at 100% for in-network providers. The state health plan also has other dietitians across the state. To find one near you, log into the state health plan portal listed on this cover slide. As a reminder, everyone who's registered for this event will receive a recording of today's presentation and the recipe. To find past Lunch and Learn recordings or to see dates and the upcoming topics, visit our website at oshr.nc.gov/wellness-webinars. During the presentation, you can submit questions through the Q&A, and members of our NC Flex team will help answer them. Additionally, Katie saved a few minutes at the end of the presentation to conquer any questions that we're unable to get to. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Katie and Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Carol. Hey, everybody. Happy February. It feels like this month is flying by. But I thought, we talked about habits we talked about creating small goals and also how to make that a habit in January. So this month, let's kind of dive into some specific healthy eating habits that you can adopt. Now, these are it was really hard to decide what I felt like the top 10 were. And some, that weren't included were, really close to making the list. There's a lot of things that you can do to create healthy eating habits. So it doesn't have to be from this list necessarily, but I decided to pick these 10 for a reason, and I will go through them with you guys here in just a second. As Carol mentioned, I have been with Lifestyle Medical Centers for, 7 years, and dietitian for much longer at this point. And I thoroughly love connecting with people in this setting like I'm doing now. This has been one of the brightest changes that have come out of the pandemic for me, is to be able to do these really fun virtual lunch and learns from my own kitchen. So I'm really, really thankful that I'm able to do this for you guys each month. But at Lifestyle, as Carol mentioned, as part of your insurance coverage, seeing a dietitian is one of those perks. And at Lifestyle, we like to kind of cater to you as an individual. And we offer lots of different services, and more information you can gather from that link at the bottom if you're interested in learning a little bit more. All right, guys, well, let's kind of dive in. So just some key discussion points here, as far as things that you're going to be hopefully understanding a little bit more of after the presentation today. Of course, gaining some knowledge of some really good, healthy eating habits that you can adopt now, understanding the purpose behind why those eating habits are so important. And hopefully, you'll be able to figure out and understand a little bit more about how to develop realistic approaches to adopting these habits into your own lifestyle. So, let's get started. All right, 10 tips. I love this picture. I love when kids help in the kitchen. And I know that that can be something that can be really trying at times. I know when I get my little guy in here who's just turned 6, there are certain things that he just really wants to do. And sometimes you just have to kind of let go of control. But I think just the more involvement that we have as a family when it comes to food is just one of those really special habits that we can start to develop. Okay, number one. So this is something that I find to be very important. I don't know if I would say it's my top number one out of all of them, but it is the first thing that I thought of. So I guess that does count for something. So eating regularly. I talk about this a lot with people in sessions. There's lots of different reasons why people may not eat regularly throughout the day. I do want to understand why that might be for someone. So typically when we skip meals, that can mean potentially overeating at a later time throughout the day. So evaluating someone's eating habits can be really beneficial if you find that you're a nighttime snacker, for example. Maybe that's because you're just not fueling your bodies efficiently throughout the entire day. It's just one example of how you can maybe come to understand if you're having difficulties with regular eating or not, one kind of side effect of that. But regular meal times also helps with better blood sugar control. So, for example, if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, or hey, just really wanting to prevent that, it's really important to be managing those blood sugars evenly throughout the day, which is what we need to do through food and through eating and not skipping. So, aiming for around 3 meals, 1 to 2 snacks. That is extremely individualized. So don't take that as every single person that's reading this needs to eat 3 meals and 1 to 2 snacks per day. Not everybody needs the same regimen, but trying to figure out what works best for you within your day, within your schedule. That's what's really an important thing for me to focus on with someone when I'm doing some one on one counseling with them. And I do typically tell people, hey, let's try not to go longer than 5 hours without a meal. Or if you do, let's plan for a snack in between because typically blood sugar dips kind of naturally happen about between 5.5 hours post meal time. So that means that we're gonna potentially start to be hungry when our blood sugars fluctuate and drive downward and dip. That's usually when hunger signals. So want to figure out why maybe we're, going longer than that. So there's a lot of different, reasons why that might be. But again, eating regularly, tip number one, I talk about structure almost immediately when I meet someone for the first time. It's one of the first things that I like to talk about with people. Okie dokie. Number two, I know you guys have heard me talk about this term PCF balance at meals, but if you haven't, I'm going to explain it here in just a second. But having this balance at meals is really essential for keeping yourself satisfied. But essentially, this PCF stands for protein, carb, or carbohydrate, and fat. And this would be the same thing as macronutrients. So those are your 3 macronutrients. So when you hear that word macronutrient balance or macro balance, that's what someone is talking about. We're talking about having a combination of the 3 of these things pretty much every time you eat. So again, keeping yourself satisfied is really important for a lot of reasons. When we're satisfied with our meals and our snacks, we tend to feel more energy. We tend to kind of have better blood sugar control mentally. We're not struggling from that kind of food noise that we're hearing constantly, from blood sugar dips or cravings as frequently. So having this balance is really important. Another reason why having this balance of all three of these macronutrients is it's going to help you get a variety of nutrients in your day. So all three of these things bring something to the table, and we want to make sure that we are covering all of them when we eat. So having that protein, for example, and fat alongside those carbohydrates can also help with that blood sugar stability. So, what I usually recommend is having at least for meal times, all three involved. And if you're going to have a snack, have at least two. Typically, we may see more focus on if you're having a carbohydrate, we want to make sure that you're pairing it with a protein or a fat because that's going to help keep your blood sugars more stable. I've used this as an example before, an analogy before, that your fat and your protein are kind of like anchors. They're also kind of like these slow burning logs. And so with your carbohydrate, it can be more of that kindling, that kind of bursts really quickly. It gives you lovely, quick energy. Carbs are not the enemy, you guys. This meal I'm making today is loaded with lots of lovely, healthy carbohydrates. But we do want to make sure there's protein involved and fat involved. And specifically, those carbohydrates, having fiber to them is really helpful too. All of these things help balance out that meal, that snack, keep your blood sugar stable, allow you to have more energy, allow for you to feel more satisfied. And ultimately, we just feel better. So that's really the bottom line. I always try to focus on that with people. Ultimately, what are we trying to do throughout the day? We're just trying to feel good. So that's what I'm trying to help teach people is how to feel better with food. Okay, tip number 3, planning out your meals. And again, guys, this isn't in any particular order. It's just kind of how I thought of them. But planning out meals is definitely up there. So I've talked about that a lot as well in my sessions and the reasons why we need a plan. But having a plan helps save time, reduce stress around meals, which is something that we really need. We don't want to add more stress in our lives. We already have enough. If we can take something away by some helpful tips like this, I hope that that is something that I can at least assist with. And overall, you will make healthier choices. So meal planning, as I've talked about in the past, it does not have to be complicated, but you do have to think about it. It has to be on your brain and a priority of yours. So some things that help me, everybody meal plans a little bit differently. And that's something in a session that I would talk to with an individual is what's going to work best for you. I give tips on what I do, but that's not always what's going to work best for everybody. There's lots of different ways to meal plan. I personally, however, do like to choose the same day and the same time each week to plan. And I bet you can guess why I do that or why I recommend that. And that's because it's going to become more of a habit. Your brain is going to naturally gravitate towards that day, that time. It's going to be thinking about it. And so I encourage people to do that. But if it doesn't work well for you and you need to kind of fluctuate, then that's fine. Maybe we set reminders to pop up to say, hey, don't forget to do meal planning this week at some point. So, as far as how to plan your meals, aiming for 2 to 3 meals per week and keep it simple. You do not have to cook something new every week. That does not mean that you're not being healthy and you're not doing it right with meal planning if you're not making all these different brand new meals every single week. Try online shopping if getting into the store is challenging. I have been talking to a lot of people about online shopping lately. It has been something that I have done since the beginning of the year. I do it every week. It's what helps me. I do like to get into the store maybe once a week, midweek, for just some, things that you either ran out of, or maybe you forgot, decided you needed. Anyway, I I just think that it's helped me be consistent with my meal planning. Some people don't want anything to do with online shopping, and that's okay too. It is not a requirement. It's just a suggestion. And sometimes I think those suggestions can be helpful. I do like that you can do the online shopping anywhere. Even if we're traveling during the weekend, I take my computer with me. I can do it anywhere I'm at. And when I get home, I can swing by and grab my groceries. So that has helped. Some downfalls of online shopping, as I'm sure you guys are sitting here thinking of, are, oh, but what about when they're out of things? Or what about when they make swaps and I don't like them? That's part of it. But there's also downsides to forgetting to go to the store, not making shopping a priority because you can't figure out how to get into the store because you don't have time or don't want to take the kids. So just kind of understand there's no perfect situation when it comes to all of this. And then last but not least, repurposing leftovers or having convenience foods on hands for tough nights is something else that I think can make meal planning a little bit easier for people, is to just go ahead and assume, hey, I'm going to have leftovers, but maybe I can make them in a different way. And then maybe I just have backup things in the freezer, especially frozen vegetables or certain meats or fish that are just really easy to pop out, thaw, and cook. So that you don't have to go to the store or so that you don't have to order out. All right. Tip number 4, aiming for more whole foods. So what does that mean, right? So whole foods is a term that we use to describe foods that really have minimal processing to them. And the first thing that I usually focus on with people is fruits and vegetables. We don't get enough of them. Okay. So we certainly aren't getting the 5 to 9 servings a day for the most part. Some individuals really don't understand what a serving is. And so I'll talk about that in a second. That's something that I love to teach people. We need to know what a serving of a fruit and a vegetable is. And it's really okay that you don't know that information. That's why we're here to be able to help educate and teach people that. It's also just not something we're sitting here learning about, that people are talking about, unless you're kind of, listening to stuff like this. So understanding what servings of fruits and vegetables are, and also a simple approach that you guys have heard me talk about before as well, is that half plate rule. So essentially having half your plate, fruits, vegetables, that's a great kind of starting point to just kind of ensure, hey, I'm probably getting more whole foods if I'm eating half a plate of fruit slash veggies every single meal when I'm eating. Something else that you guys can do is take a scan of your pantry. And this is something that I like to do too. We all get caught up in it. If we have children, we're having packaged foods around, and that's just the reality. And there's healthier options that we can be choosing and ingredients that we can be looking for. But essentially, are there packaged items that you don't need, that you're buying too much of? Maybe we have 3 bags of chip like uh, foods in our pantry when maybe we just need one. Maybe there's 3 different types of granola bars, so it's just little things like that. We can also try to make healthier homemade treats with minimal ingredients. I know treats and cookies and things like that, those packaged items tend to be, a top contender as far as processed foods that are in the home. And so making them yourself. I have lots of fun recipes. I share one here in a minute, but they don't have to be difficult, and they can be really tasty. And I think the bottom line is we don't just have to eat fruits and vegetables to get whole foods. Let's just think about ways we can also reduce some of the packaged items that we have available in our homes. That's a fun thing to try at the grocery store too, is let's see if more of my bags have refrigerator items than pantry items. And you can kind of play a little guessing game. Maybe you get the kids involved. See, sometimes we just have to make things fun, you guys, right? So I'm sure you guys have heard of Whole30, and you probably are aware that I'm not someone that says we have to follow these diet type, these types of diets all of the time either. So key word here and key phrase here is you can be flexible with this. But I do like the approach of Whole30 for the sense of maybe it makes you think about some of the things that I just said. What sauces am I constantly buying that I could maybe try to whip up pretty simply at home? That's one of my favorite things that I'm doing with this particular recipe today is making this homemade yogurt dip that is just phenomenal. And it is super simple. So it's little things like that. It just takes away a little of that additional sodium, added sugars, things that can be in some of these more processed foods just by, making certain things at home that maybe you weren't even aware are super simple to make. All right. Tip number 5, focus on fiber-rich foods. Fiber is extremely important, and I always love to talk about fiber. So I definitely wanted this to be on the list today. Fiber aids with, there's a long checklist, but I chose to focus here on it's important for heart health, digestive health, blood sugar control, and weight management. Those are just 4. There's, so many wonderful things about fiber, and we just aren't getting enough fiber. And the reason for that is we're not getting enough whole foods. So they kind of go together. Standard recommendations for fiber are between 25 to 35 grams per day. I'm not also, you guys know this, I'm not someone that really focuses a lot on tracking every single detail of your day when it comes to, calories and all of that. But I do like tracking for certain things. I like for people to understand what foods have fiber in them and how much fiber they're getting in a day. So that would be something that I do encourage people to track. So if you've never done that before, simply just, look at a food label and see how much fiber is in it. I'm going to give you some standard guides here for fruits and vegetables. You can also track it on an app just to see how many grams of fiber you're getting, see where you're starting from. So when it comes to fruits and vegetables, a serving of a fruit or veggie, which I actually don't include on the slide, which I thought that I did, I include how much fiber a serving of fruit or veggie has, but I can follow up with that information so that it's included within the presentation slides and the information that you guys are able to look at later. But a serving of fruit is going to be a half a cup or 1 small piece. And a serving of a vegetable is going to be a half of a cup cooked or 1 cup of raw. Okay. But I'll send that information out to you guys later after the presentation today. So a serving of fruit or vegetable, those examples I just gave, have anywhere from 3 to 5 grams of fiber per serving on average. Some have a little less, some have a little bit more. But aiming ultimately for 5 to 9 servings is a great way to increase your fiber intake. So again, just focusing on that half plate rule is going to A, give you more whole foods, and A, and A, and then B, give you more fiber. So that could be something that you guys leave here today and decide, hey, why don't I try to say, do what Katie was suggesting and make half my plate fruit and veggies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or maybe we're just picking 1 to 2 meals and starting from there, just depending on where you're at, right? Where we're at within our goals and what we're currently doing. So other fiber-rich foods to include, which this recipe that I am giving you today is loaded with fiber. It's going to include beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and avocados. So this recipe includes all but the nuts and seeds. So you're going to get lots of fiber if you decide to try this recipe, which I hope that you do. It's so good. And aiming for more plant-based meals, which this recipe is a plant-based meal as well, in your diet can help ensure that you're getting more of these types of fiber-rich foods as well. So start with something simple, like it's easy to remember Meatless Monday, right? It's like Taco Tuesday. So start with 1 meal a week being plant-based. You don't have to be fully plant-based to get your fiber servings in. It's just helpful if you're focused on plant-based type foods within your cuisine a lot of the time. All right. Tip number 6, limit added sugars. And this recipe that I have over to the right, you guys have to try. It's absolutely delicious. I've made them quite a bit lately just because having a nutrient dense, but also kind of checks the box for that satisfaction factor is so essential. And I love them in the afternoon. So these little peanut butter energy balls, and they have protein powder to them, oats and flax seeds, and lots of lovely things in there to boost fiber and healthy fats. And they do have sweets in them, but there's not a lot. So, and there's a lot of fat and protein to balance out those carbs. So again, kind of that afternoon slump, you kind of get a little craving, you kind of want a little something sweet. One of these is really helpful for that. And it helps to sustain you until, the end of the day and dinner time. Okay, but the American Heart Association is recommending no more than 25 to 36 grams of added sugar per day here. So this is another area that I think is interesting for people to know where they're starting from. I think just paying attention, that third bullet point down there, sugar is okay in moderation. I certainly have zero expectations of people feeling like they can't have anything sweet. But sometimes we just need to pay attention and then we're aware. And awareness is what helps to create change and understanding. So focus on food labels, maybe kind of like the pantry, right? We look at the pantry, we see what foods have more added sugars in them, and we start to understand, is there something else that I could have that maybe has a little bit less? Is there something that I could try to make myself from scratch? You can reach out to me. I can give examples, or you can obviously use the internet to figure that out too, what some fun low added sugar recipes are for whatever it is that you're desiring. Also, just starting by some of the obvious culprits. If have been thinking about cutting back on sugary sodas, this is a great time to start. Maybe those packaged snacks, like I was just talking about, and those desserts that tend to do have more of those added sugars involved. Tip number 7, I love this one because this isn't something that we often think about talking about when we are going to see a dietitian. So this is something that I like to talk about with people, understanding that we all kind of do things differently at mealtime, but I also want people to understand that this is an important thing to think about. So there's 3 parts to it. There's the sitting down. So I really love when people eat sitting down with their food on a plate and ideally without distractions. Okay. So the reason for that is a lot of things it can help with. Just eating slower is definitely part of that, which can help with digestion, which helps with feeling full faster because when we take our time, our body recognizes fullness more effectively at a pace that feels good. And all of a sudden, we don't stop and feel really full. Uh-oh, we've gone too far moments. And then just this ultimate mind and body connection to the food. It's proven that when we pay attention to the food that we're eating, we enjoy it more. And sometimes the reasons why we kind of circle back to more portions or having more of something is because we didn't fully pay attention and fully feel that good feeling from it. So that's why when we're sitting in front of the TV and we just kind of do this hand to mouth for just an indefinite amount of time, that's part of it. There's many layers sometimes to these behaviors, which is something that I love to talk about with people and try to help them with. But ultimately, just these 3 things, if you can try to work on them, start with the one that you think you can kind of do the easiest and move forward. So start with one of the 3 if you feel like you're not ready for all 3. I challenge you all to just focus on sitting down when you eat. I can't tell you how many times I have to kind of give myself a, hey, Katie, go sit down. You get busy, especially when you work from home. I feel like you're in between meetings, you come to the kitchen, grab something, you're putting it together, and all of a sudden, you're just standing and you're eating, and we all get caught up in it. So have a spot. Something that works for me is I have my little eating spot, especially during the day when I'm maybe not with my whole family and it's not dinner time. I have my little eating spot. It's right over there. It's kind of that little bar area in my kitchen. And I just sit there and I go away from my computer. I don't sit in front of my computer because if I sit in front of my computer, I'm going to answer an email or send someone a Teams chat or whatever. So I want to do it without distractions if I can, and always have your food on a plate. Even if it's, like the little peanut butter balls I was just talking about, grab like a little paper towel, sit down, put it on that. Practice this with all things because I do think that that again makes it more of a habit when you're doing it all of the time or trying to at least. So I also put, that last bullet point, work on increasing time at the dinner table as a family doing these things. That's something that's really hard to come by these days. And I get how difficult that is. We struggle with that as well as a lot of people with kids and sports and extracurriculars and various time frames of work for a lot of families and not always kind of ending at the same time. There are a lot of reasons why that might be hard. So pick a realistic amount of time that feels right for you and your family and focus on that. Even if it's just 1 to 2 times a week, because you see that you're able to, maybe it's a weekend, maybe it's a Friday night. So I think these are all things that help bring about better connection with the food. And I do think that that's really, really essential to healthy eating. All right, tip number 8, pay attention to portions. So paying attention to portions can be beneficial for many reasons, but ultimately, yes, it can aid with weight management, but it's really also essential for your digestion, for improved blood sugar control, overall, just the prevention of chronic disease. Sometimes that weight management is just a nice side effect to some of the really important things that portion control is helping with. So we can understand what portions are of certain things. Maybe we don't look at the food labels. Maybe we're not checking that out. Maybe that's something we could start to do. Think about that plate method. We use this as a really simple tool for a lot of things, as you can see, just because it is a simple visual. So try a smaller plate. Some of the mindful eating suggestions that I just mentioned in tip number 7. All of these things can naturally help you reduce your portions. But kind of circling back to that PCF balance slide, having a balance of those macronutrients is ultimately going to help keep your portions at bay because you're going to feel full, satisfied, and then setting up your plate in this plate method way that you can see in this picture is a great way to make sure that your portions are kind of staying in line with what you need. But again, not mentioned on the slide, but this is also very individualized. And there is not a one size for all fits all here for these recommendations. So I certainly am not trying to imply that. We help people understand what portion sizes are best for them. These are just some, typical ways of going about it. Okay. You guys knew that water was going to be on this. I'm sure you were wondering where it was. Okay. But yes, drink more water. We all need to drink more water. I set goals for myself all the time with water. I am not perfect. I know I teach and I help educate on all of these things. But I am a human being and I have to focus on all of this stuff too. So drinking water, something that helps me is having certain mini goals set throughout the day. Is there a certain time that you want to have accomplished one of your water bottles? I have about a 30-ounce water bottle. Some people do better with smaller water bottles. Some people want it all in one large bottle and they know they just drink one of these a day. Again, individualized in the way that you go about it. And so we're just here to help facilitate some of that for you and ease some accountability and help troubleshoot barriers to why you're not getting your water in. So Drinking enough water, though, is important because it's essential for digestion, metabolism, and your energy levels. And I don't think people realize how important it is for all of those things. Sometimes we just think, oh, I know we should be drinking a lot of water if we're trying to lose weight. Well, let's think about it in a deeper way. It really is helpful for your digestion, helps to alleviate some of that bloating that can occur, especially if you're eating a lot of protein and fiber. You need a lot of water. So that's something that's essential. It needs vary individually, like I just mentioned, but focus on those habits. That's what I like to focus on with people, is just how to make this more of a habit, because really the goal is to just, drink more. So why aren't we drinking more? Are we taking our water bottle with us? Something that I had to work through mentally was, what's the point in taking it with me? I'm only going to be out for 15 minutes. I'll just leave it. I don't. However, it gets me out of the habit of having my water bottle with me all of the time. And let's be honest, I might have had 3 or 4 sips of water within those 15 minutes in the car. So take it with you. That's something that I'm working on, is just having it with me all of the time. No matter if I think I'm gonna, or no matter, yeah, if I'm gonna drink it or not, I want it to be with me. Find a water bottle that you love. We all need that, right? We have to have a little connection with this water bottle. It does matter. And when you think about a good water bottle, something that's going to work for you, I want people to think about, is a straw going to be helpful versus an open cup? What size is going to be helpful? Do you get overwhelmed by large amounts, or do you feel like you drink more with less amounts and you fill it up more frequently? Those are all things that I think are important to understand. And then also, another tip, focus on drinking first thing in the morning before coffee. I don't even set goals as far as how much. I just want people to have sips of water before they start their coffee. So it's just on your brain. And then this is my favorite tip. Best for last. Allow indulgent food you desire. This is going to help reduce feelings of deprivation. It will help shift your mindset from all or none, which we've talked about before. A chance to learn balanced eating with the foods you desire. Yes, that is so important. I want to teach people how to eat all the foods, not just a certain set of foods within this little box. Teaching flexibility with food is extremely important, starting from a young age. So I want people to understand that you can live a flexible life with food and be healthy. So I challenge you guys to think in this way, or just practice. It's hard to just shift your thinking like that, but practice talking like this. Instead of, oh, I shouldn't eat this. No, I shouldn't eat that. Let's start to say, hey, I wonder what's the best way I should eat this. For example, if it's chocolate, I shouldn't eat that chocolate. I shouldn't eat it. Actually, you should. And so how should I eat it? So let's try pairing a protein or a fat with that carb or that chocolate, because it's going to help create better blood sugar control and fullness around your desired choice. But pushing out that chocolate over and over and over again is going to make you feel deprived, and you're going to rebel, and you're going to eat way more chocolate than if you just allowed it in the first place. Okay. Last slide here, just about healthy approaches to habit change. I love this quote. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old and saying, oh, we shouldn't be this way. Why are we this way? I wish we weren't this way. But instead, let's focus on building the new. What are some things that I can add to my day that are going to be helpful for me, instead of constantly thinking about, here I go again, right? So start small, be clear and realistic with your goals. Think progress, not perfection. There's no perfect person. You're not going to be perfect at it all the time. Normalize the fact that you're going to be working on something all of the time. Focus on things you enjoy when it comes to making habit changes. There are things that can be enjoyable about this process, and I can help you figure that out. Find support. That's very important. Learn what triggers you, and with that, get curious, not critical. That's something that I tell people all of the time. I embrace these chances of understanding why I can't follow through with something. Why can't I sit down for my meals? What's going on here? Instead of, oh, here I go again, just not doing it right. Why is that? Let's get curious about it. Okay. Let's stop putting ourselves down. Let's just get curious and we'll fix it and find the relevance. It's important to have a really important reason why you want to do any of this. So hopefully you pick one of those 10 healthy eating habits to work on adopting. And I'm here for anyone that needs help with that along the way. Some references for you guys just from, throughout the presentation today. And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me talk about these 10 healthy eating habits to adopt now. We are going to move into the cooking demonstration part, which is going to be swift and not too long and really an easy thing to put together. And I'm excited to show it to you. So we are going to cook butternut squash burrito bowls. So again, this is a vegetarian meatless dish, which I encourage you all to try if you've not done anything like this before. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over the recipe. I'm going to show you guys entails, and then I am going to save questions after the demonstration so that you guys can, talk through any questions that you have regarding the presentation or regarding the recipe. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to prepare our butternut squash. This particular recipe uses a large butternut squash and a bunch of seasonings that just make it lovely. So many lovely seasonings. And you bet all of you have these seasonings at home. If not, these are ones you're going to use a lot. So I would get them if you don't have them because they just complement so many different vegetables and other things. So we're going to show you all my spices here. We have a tablespoon of chili powder, a quarter teaspoon of garlic powder, quarter teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, a teaspoon of paprika, and 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. I have a quarter teaspoon of salt and about a half a teaspoon of pepper. It called for a teaspoon. I almost omitted it altogether. I rarely use salt, so I don't think it needs it when you have all these other flavorful spices at hand. So if you're someone that's really trying to watch your sodium, I would just leave it off. It definitely isn't necessary. So I'm going to dump that. I have a whole butternut squash here that I have cubed, cut into kind of little chunks such as this. You can buy butternut squash pre-cubed if you don't want to do this yourself. It's a convenience factor, up to you. Okay, so I'm going to dump my spices in there. And then you're going to add a couple tablespoons of oil. And then we're just going to mix that up really, really good. This is the only part of the recipe that involves cooking, pretty much. All the other ingredients are kind of convenience, in my opinion. So we're just basically trying to, as evenly as possible, get these spices. Oops, lost you. I think that looks good. So I have my oven set over here to 400 degrees. I am going to take a kind of greased sheet pan, and I'm going to spread my butternut squash evenly out. So having those spices pre-done is always a helpful tip, in my opinion, sometimes, and having your squash baked. So if you do this on a weekend, it'll make it mealtime a breeze when you get home. All right, so I'm going to pop that in the oven for about 30 minutes. I like to take it out halfway. So about 15 minutes in, kind of mix it around, put it back in for another 15, and it's Perfectly cooked. Okay, so I'm gonna pop that in the oven here. All right. So we're going to put our bowl together now, but first I'm going to make the lime cilantro yogurt dressing, which is absolutely divine. It is bursting with flavor. You could use this for tacos. You could use this for so many things. It's just so simple and so good. I have, for our dressing, a cup of plain Greek yogurt. So this is a great additional source of protein to the dish. Right, so I'm going to dump that in here. All right. I am going to add a clove of minced garlic. I have about a third a cup or so of some chopped up cilantro. And then I am going to zest a lime. I decided to just go ahead and zest it while I'm here instead of having it pre-zested. If you have not zested a lime before, you just need a grater and you're going to grate the skin of the lime right on top of the bowl here. Kind of getting all sides. It really just depends. The zest is going to add, I probably did more like half of that lime. And then we're going to have a lime squeezed into the bowl. So it says on the recipe, 2 tablespoons, but I'm just going to do a whole lime, okay? Because that's also what it's saying to do as well. Basically, 1 large lime squeezed is the equivalent of a couple of tablespoons. I need to get a little lime squeezer, juicer, if you will. All right. I'm gonna wipe my hands for just a second here, and then we're just gonna mix that up, you guys. Okay. Kind of slowly but surely mixing this up. And I will go ahead and say the recipe was intended for this to be 4 servings. So all the ingredients in the bowl can be split into 4 different bowls to kind of be a meal prep if you'd like to do it that way. Otherwise, you guys know bowls are pretty versatile. You can kind of manipulate the amount of things as you desire. All right, clean this up for a second. We are going to put our bowl together. I have my butternut squash that, despite it being a little darker here, do not worry, it is not burned. This is just some of that lovely seasoning that is kind of darkened, and it is so delicious, you guys. I meant to have, I mean, I guess it didn't matter if I had more. We have really we ate it all last night. It was so delicious. I was like, oh my goodness, we have to save this portion for my demo tomorrow, everybody. It was so, so good. It's so sweet. It has so many lovely spices. It's awesome. Okay, so I want to talk about the macronutrients and the information within this particular recipe. So for a serving that I'm going to put together here, which is 1/4 of all the ingredients that they're giving you here, which is roughly, I'm going to say about 1/2 cup of all of the things. And I can also send that information out as well, so you guys can know what a single serving of this is going to maybe look like for you. But if you want to lower the carb content, it's about 60 grams of carbohydrate for a serving for this particular dish. And I know that might go, whoa, 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 that's a lot. But I want to let you guys know that it has so much fiber, like minimal grams of obviously sugar here, and it's loaded with healthy fat and almost 20 grams of protein from just pure plant-based foods. So this is it. This is the type of carbohydrate rich meal that feels good to your body. But if you want to reduce it to closer to like a 45 carbohydrate range, just omit one of these carb servings. Either choose rice or beans instead of both. Okay, I'm going to use it all today, but you could do that. Would be my suggestion, is to just omit either rice or beans, not do both rice and beans for this dish. Okay, I am going to, I have some whole grain brown rice here that I am just going to dump, about like a heaping quarter cup. I'm choosing to use both, but I'm going to do a quarter cup of rice, quarter cup of beans. Okay. So far we have just some rinsed and drained black beans and some brown rice. Okay. You can even get brown rice that you pop in the microwave and heat it up that way. Super simple. So you've got your about a half a cup of your roasted butternut squash, quarter cup of your black beans, quarter cup of your brown rice. To add some splashes of color here, I'm gonna do a quarter cup of corn, kind of right in the middle. This is what makes it fun also, you guys. It's just kind of designing these bowls. All right, and then I'm going to do, let's see, about a quarter cup of these tomatoes, kind of spread throughout. Then we've got our garnishes. I have some guacamole here that I have wholly guacamole. Okay, guys, instead of fresh avocado, you can do either whatever you would like. This is just avocado though. It is not a guac. I'm going to do about a fourth of it, just kind of spooned on top. If you want to add a little heat, you could add some jalapeno slices. And then a little bit more of that fresh cilantro. And then this is the best part, is this yogurt little dip that I'm going to put a nice generous portion here on top. You guys, it's so good. And then what I like to do is just take my fork and mix it all together. It is absolutely delicious. It has so many different flavors, different textures, and it is loaded with so many good essential nutrients, macronutrients, micronutrients, fiber, taste. It's got all the things. So I really hope that you guys make this at home because it's really, really great. Okay, questions?
Katie, it really looks so good.
It's so
Oh my
good.
goodness.
Y'all know
And
I'm
you're
eating
right.
this right when we're done. I hate y'all can't taste it.
I know. I'd love to swing by your home and get that for dinner tonight.
I know.
It does look like too that most of these ingredients you would have on hand. Like,
Yes.
I was just writing down that I would need to go get the butternut squash and the Greek
Yeah.
yogurt, but other than that, I
You
have
could
everything.
also swap the butternut if you prefer sweet potato. That would be a really easy substitution. But the butternut squash has been so good lately. I've used it for a lot of things that I would use sweet potato for, and so good.
We and it does look easy to make as well. We've had a few comments about that. So we've had a couple of people ask how you cut up a butternut squash. They find it very difficult, which I have to agree.
Yeah.
I do buy it already done, same with
Pre-made.
my sweet potato, but it would be nice to know how you do it yourself. Save a little money.
Yeah, so it is a little bit easier than a spaghetti squash, just because it depends on the size. So, but similar to a spaghetti squash, normally what I would do is poke holes in it throughout with a fork, just kind of poke holes in it, pop it in the microwave for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and it softens it just a touch. It doesn't cook it too much, but it makes cutting it so much easier. You can, I would peel it, okay, before you do all that. I would peel, pop it in the microwave, 3 to 4 minutes, take it out, cut it down the middle lengthwise. So think about when you cut open a cantaloupe or anything that's kind of got seeds in the middle like that. So you're gonna cut it down the middle lengthwise, and then you're gonna take a spoon, fork, whatever you want to work with that you feel like is easier. Sometimes a fork can be a little bit easier at first to kind of get some of the flesh and seeds out of the middle. So you do have to do that. And then, you're really just kind of chopping it up into smaller bits and then cutting it up as small as you can. I would cut them up into small little cubes. It takes some little bit of time. So to me, with a recipe like this, it just doesn't take a ton of time compared to the recipe itself as a whole. But that's completely up to the individual, because I mean, I've gone to Trader Joe's, I've gone to, other, Harris Teeter grocery stores, gotten it pre-done also. I think it just depends on what mood I'm in and what the recipe as a whole looks like. So
Okay. I do my meal prepping thanks to Lifestyle Medical Centers and your help on Sunday. And it really helps with being a working mom through the week.
This would be a definitely a thing to do on a weekend, and having your spices measured. That's the thing for me sometimes, like, got to get home and get all the spices out and get all the things out. Sometimes it's that stuff that pushes me over. So those are the two things that I would say have done.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Katie. This was wonderful. And for all of you who are still here, we do have our March Worksite Wellness webinar coming up, which we'll all be thankful to turn the leaf over to spring. And our title is Spring into Clean Eating, which we've kind of led into today, with especially the mention of Whole30. We did have some questions about Whole30 Challenge. What is the Whole30 Challenge? And can you send us a link to that when you follow up?
I could send over just some general. I mean, Whole30 has its own website. And so I'll share that with you guys. And that way you can kind of have the proper resources moving forward, shopping guides and things like that. So yeah, there are things that I like about Whole30 and things that I don't like, and I think that's just how it goes. I don't like that you cannot eat beans. I don't understand that part, and dairy. I get the dairy side of things for certain things like cheese and stuff, but not having like a plain Greek yogurt, that's a toughie. And so I don't want people to think that you can't have something like plain Greek yogurt in your lifestyle and still be healthy. So, but I do like it for the sense of it has, like I mentioned in the presentation, it has you evaluate, hey, are there some things that I could be making at home, or some sauces that are a little bit cleaner, have a little less processed ingredients, less added sugars that I didn't realize were out there, but since doing Whole30, I've learned. So I can share that with you guys.
Okay. And the one thing I've really found from buying like pre-made sauces or soups or whatever versus making them on my own is the sodium level.
Yeah, that's
so much better if you're not using something pre-made or processed.
Yes, agreed.
And all you state employees out there, remember that we do have Miles for Wellness. Challenge 31 is starting March the 3rd. So be sure to re-look at the email we sent, and Sierra was going to put a link to how to form a team and register for Challenge 31. So registration is open now, and we would love for y'all to start signing up.
Perfect.
Okay, and the link is now in the chat. So thank you again, Katie, and we will look forward to clean eating webinar coming up in March.
Perfect. All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a
Bye.
great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.